different. I see we have we're calling an audible. Oh, we're going 4 wide. It's happening. It's happening.
Yes, as our friend Dan Colley says, we're going 4 wide. Back here again with episode number 6 of the 4 Wide podcast, guys. Week 4 of the NFL season, at least the afternoon slate, is wrapping up. But as we said last week, or as I said last week, it doesn't end. It's not over till Monday night. Sadly, my Dallas Cowboys are not on Monday night. But hey, Cooper is 4-0. We'll get to that later. First, let's open it up with the business. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, at Harrison Reno, at The Sodfather, at Dan Colley 3, at Dr._J Will. And make sure to like and subscribe on the video, guys. Interact with us on Twitter. Do all that and share the show. We like talking with y'all. Let's hope we have a good show. With that being said, let's open it up. We had some big news last week that we were not able to cover because we cover it kind of. Well, we touched on it for a little bit, but there's some stuff that has unraveled since then. Tua Tagovailoa suffered a concussion, as we all know, and now there's some controversy. Some new news has broke out from that. So, going to open up the floor. Jeremiah, you are in the top right box. Let's get your thoughts.
So here's the thing. So, we talked about it last week after it happened and how he somehow came back into that game, just blew us all away at halftime that, he got up from the ground and he couldn't stand up. He fell around he was stumbling, and all of a sudden that he comes back in and plays the second half of that game. Well, then we fast forward 5 days, and he's starting the next game on Thursday night, and all of a sudden he gets thrown to the ground. This one was actually a lot harder of a hit than the last one that caused the issue, and his head popped the ground pretty hard, and he laid there, and you could see his hands were like this, they were crunched up and sitting in front of his face, and he just couldn't move for a second. That's neurological. Your system just kind of locked down, and you couldn't do it. And then they're still trying to come back out and say that he's having back issues instead of just being hey, he's got a concussion and that needs to be taken care of. They're just sitting here going, no, he's got back issues still. That's what the Dolphins are saying. And that's, to me, it's the most, it's terrifying to see for a player safety standpoint that they're just trying to act I guess now they're just trying to cover their tracks. And the independent third party neurologist or somebody that cleared him has been fired by the NFL at this point, I believe, as well. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Well, I think this is my biggest issue with the situation. First of all, of course, biggest issue, of course, is Tua's safety. You always want to put the player first, put his safety first. And last week we talked about on this show how we knew for a fact he should not have gone back in that game. You could tell by when a player gets slammed to the ground and then gets up and he's stumbling, kind of is getting with his whereabouts altogether and doesn't really exactly look like someone who knows where he's at. That's an issue. So we could clearly see from our couches at home that he should not have been put back in that game. So for them to go play on Thursday, so then you got a quick week, you have a quick turnaround, and he goes and they clear him to play again on Thursday, and then he gets slammed to the ground and he freezes up on the ground. And so for all of that to happen, for all of that to occur, and for the coaching staff and everybody else to then come on TV in their press conferences and say, oh, no, he didn't have a concussion, we take this very seriously, to lie to us and to act like we don't know what's going on, to talk to us like we're dumb and don't have common sense to realize what's going on. That's my biggest issue, is that they try and just cover it up almost like we're blind to everything that has happened already and that we're not supposed to see we could see from our own couch what happened with Tua. And we know as people, not even medical experts, know that he should not have been in that game and he should not have been put back in last week's game. So for them to just sit there and blatantly lie to us, that's my biggest issue with it, because that tells me that organization does not really care about their players, and especially one of their most important players.
The one thing that really, really, really irks me is that you had doctors who have not treated Tua coming out saying, if he plays in this game, this is exactly what's going to happen. And there was one neurological doctor who put out the graphic of the two guys laying on their back. And I know everybody's seen it at this point, where the one guy, his hands are turned this way, and the other one is when their fingers are doing all this. And it's that it's basically your brain is shutting down. And it's and he put it out there before the game happened. And then I did not watch that game live, and you guys were trying to catch me up as I was going home. When I saw that, and listen, I played ball. You guys played ball. Anybody that's ever played, we've all seen an injury a time or two, right? And sometimes there are certain things you see that they're uncomfortable, like ankle things, leg things. Those things are uncomfortable, and we'll get more to those in just a second. But when I saw that, it made me nauseous. And I'm not trying to be like a wimp or whatever like that. I'm not trying to be a softie, or I'm not. But like that man's life almost at that point was in jeopardy. And for other humans to put him in that position is appalling, to be completely honest. Because why did we pass the concussion protocol stuff? Is because there has to be somebody, a doctor or somebody who cares about the longevity of life for these people, to stop them from themselves. And that's the issue that we have here is 99.9% of athletes want to compete, and they will compete at the detriment of their own health because it's just in their DNA, where they like the only thing they care about is winning and losing. There has to be a third party person to come in and say, no, this is not okay. This is too much. And the visual of Tua laying on the ground, having no control of his body, his fingers literally curling up on top of each other because he couldn't control his body. That's scary. That's frightening. That has no place in sports. And I was sick to my stomach.
Well, and for them to, like, he went to the hospital too. And like we were talking about, like they clearly don't care about the safety of the player. Like he went to the hospital, he gets discharged like later that afternoon, and they're still publicly saying, it's a back issue at that point. After seeing all of that, like you said, we could all see it from our own couch. Jonathan said this a second ago. We all saw what was going on. You don't sit here and still try to tell us it's a back issue. Then you're going to tell us that he's going to travel home with the team. He's going to go and fly on a plane. That can't be good for the brain in that situation that's already been concussed, to then go change altitudes and going like that. That's seriously dangerous for him. And it's really concerning to see how they don't seem to care about Tua. And like Jonathan said, one of the most valuable players on their team. And then like Dan just said a second ago, most players are going to keep trying to play regardless, because all of us that played sports too, I played through injuries. I'm sure everybody else did too. And you don't necessarily tell your coach everything that's going on. But when something is that blatantly obvious, you cannot let that player make the call for themselves.
I mean, you had an actual verified doctor on Twitter before the game saying if Tua Tagovailoa plays in this game, he is risking having yet another concussion, you're not only jeopardizing him for a couple games in the season, you are jeopardizing this man's career. Everything that he has left to put into this league, that is what you are putting on the line if you are willing to put him out in this football game. And that's exactly what the Dolphins did this week.
So while we're talking about this Tua thing, and it's by far the most egregious injury thing that we've seen so far, I also have to bring up the Justin Herbert injury, because he had separated. All right, if you don't know what a fractured rib cartilage is, because I didn't, it's your ribs are held together in place in their shape by cartilage. So what happens is the bones separate from that cartilage, and it's extremely, extremely painful, and it's dangerous because now your rib cage is not protected by that cartilage to stay into place. If you were to break one of those like that, and this is all something that was explained by a doctor because most of us didn't know what that was, extremely, extremely dangerous. So while it's not a head injury, it's also a very risky injury to play through. So what is going on with these doctors? I mean, you have the Tua thing, which we've already covered, and I think we well stated our position on that. But I even have a problem with Justin Herbert being allowed to play. There's no way with a broken rib cage the guy should be in a football game. And this injury stuff is getting out of control. And if you want to know why there are so many rules to protect a quarterback, go look at how bad these teams are without a quarterback. The teams know they don't have a chance to be successful without the quarterback. So the byproduct of that is now they are risking the health of these players by putting them in the game because they don't have anybody else. I think it's equally as bad. Granted, the brain thing trumps everything, but the rib thing is just as bad, gentlemen.
Yeah. First off, I do want to say something. Not all teams are bad without their starting quarterback. My Dallas Cowboys are 4-0 with Cooper Rush starting quarterback. But I did want to update everyone on something because I am coming across it now. The NFL has come out and said that they have agreed to update the parameters around the concussion protocol. A big thing that allowed Tua to come back to that game against the Dolphins a week ago was some loophole in it. It basically said if your general motor stability, which is your ability to walk, run, all that, which clearly he didn't, he was not able.
He didn't have.
He didn't have.
He didn't have that.
The loophole that allowed him to return was the guise of it was an orthopedic injury. That's what they said. That back injury was what allowed them to put him back out there. They were able to say, okay, we cannot prove that it's not just mentally related. They said it was a back issue. So that's why when you heard it in the media, that's what it is. That was their way of getting him back in the game. So now the NFLPA, the NFL Players Association in the NFL, is meeting or have agreed to close that loophole because, I mean, that loophole doesn't make sense at all. And it's not in effect just yet. I believe it comes into effect next week once they do agree upon it. So that is a move in the right direction. But we've already seen today, guys, there's been some more, concussion protocols. Like it is Brian Hoyer left the Patriots game. The Patriots' second-string quarterback left the game today against the Packers. Leads to Bailey Zappi, their third string, coming into the game for the rest of the year, for the rest of the game. Tyrod Taylor for the Giants, their second-string quarterback after Daniel Jones went down, was in the game for them. He also ended up leaving with a concussion protocol.
Injuries are just up this year, guys. I mean, look,
they are
across the board. I mean, Lewis Cine getting a gruesome injury today. I mean, obviously not head related. Garrett Wilson last week, the wide receiver, takes a shot to the rib cage, out for the rest of that game. I do believe he played today, not well, but he played today. Higgins last week, Jeremiah, as well as I do. Higgins takes that big shot, knocks him out of the game, and then he's back in the lineup again on Thursday.
He killed it this week too.
Yeah,
he played. Yeah, he had a good game too. But like he was back in the game after taking a shot to the head on Sunday, and then he's playing Thursday night. That's the same kind of stuff. And listen, this is the risk that we run on this. We've been talking about this today and yesterday. With these head injuries are so serious, they can really change the person's life. Like it's not just like for the game of football. It is this person's life long term. And like the perfect example for this is Antonio Brown. AB is out here. Like there's videos of him talking to the media and stuff prior to, taking some of the big hits that he has taken in his career. And he's very well spoken. He's carrying himself like such a professional way and a good way. And then all of a sudden he takes that Vontae Burfict hit to the head, that huge one that everyone knows. And all of a sudden the guy's just different, and he keeps playing. He loses his mind, basically, is what it looks like to the average fan that's watching. Everyone saw the way he's acted at like 4 different teams in the past couple of seasons, and then now outside of football, he's still doing these weird, crazy things that just aren't mentally like normal things for people to do. He's out here in I think this one he was in a hotel pool in Dubai, and he's out here just butt naked in the pool, puts his butt in this lady's face, and then also exposes other stuff outside of the pool to everybody else. Like the dude has just lost his mind. And y'all can't tell me that the crazy hits that he's taken through his career haven't played into that. Like the dude is he's been rocked.
I feel like a horrible person to laugh at this situation because it's really not a funny situation, but the actions that he's doing are a little bit funny. But just going over the course of the last year, he walks off the field, strips his jersey off. He's jumping up and down, leaves the game, just upright leaves in the middle of the game saying, I'm done. Don't want to be here anymore. Don't want to play for Tampa Bay anymore. I'm done. Goes and does an event like this, flashes his man parts all over the place, picture surfaces of it. And then even today, I believe it was today, he makes a tweet talking in third person about himself saying, I'm telling every NFL team that they need to sign Antonio Brown because everybody, like, he can expose a D. Take that as you will. Take that whatever direction you will. But he's making jokes about his own self and about all of these issues he has.
Shout out to the New York Post. Whoever edited that photo, you did a great job blurring that thing out and not revealing just all of it.
Oh, how about they exposed the entire thing? That was the worst blur job in the history of blur jobs. It's like, holy God.
My God.
Why don't we just trace that thing out and post it on somebody's face?
I was like, is that his leg or is that his fill in the blank? And
please,
Dan says,
listen,
yes.
I'm going to go to the pool, and I'm going to need one of you to do an edit job like that for me.
Okay, we don't need to hear about whatever. We don't need to hear about that, Dan. We'll talk that out another time, man to man. But it's really concerning the fact that not only of what his actions have become.
We went too far down that conversation.
God.
And I quote, the worst blur job in the history of blur.
Oh,
that's a typo.
Hey now. I won't go down that hole now. But anyways,
Yes,
The fact that it's not only just his actions, but how he's reacting to his own actions. He clearly doesn't see anything wrong with what he's doing because he's out here making jokes about it, tweeting it, going viral. It's concerning, and I have a really bad feeling that a long time down the road, we're going to end up getting a documentary about Antonio Brown and just what overcame his body and how his NFL career impacted the rest of his life. I really do.
Well, and then he posted a picture on Instagram today. I can't remember the caption, but he posted a picture of him hugging Giselle after the Super Bowl they won and stuff like that. And there was some type of quote at the bottom of it. And everyone was like, "What is he now? Is he going after Giselle now too? Because him and her and Tom are having some problems. Like, what's going on? I don't know. The guy has just been kind of out of control. But that's once again, it goes back to all of those injuries and stuff like that. To me, it really does because he just one day he was just this different type of person, and he took a lot of big hits and stuff, but. Kind of going back to what Dan said a little bit ago with Justin Herbert, I think the problem is all these guys out here or all these teams they're getting these doctors to clear these players and do stuff that they probably shouldn't be because that rib cartilage not being there, that means the rib can move like that. I mean, if he takes a shot there, I mean, he could puncture his lung or something like that with a rib.
Yeah,
like that's the kind of risk that you run. Like that's very, very serious problem.
I can't do medical stuff, man. Ugh.
No, that's a problem. Like we got to stop doing that. I understand these guys are out here making millions of dollars. I understand that they are doing their job week in and week out. But at some point, they need somebody that's not associated with the team or something. There has to be a better standard put in place that like they cannot continue to let these guys play in these situations because it could literally kill somebody because they want to win a football game.
But isn't that why? Like that's why they brought in this. I don't even know what the UNC, the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant, and the Dolphins just fired that guy who they had on their team, and still.
But it's just a back injury, right?
I think the NFL fired the person.
Was it the NFL that fired him? Yeah,
because I don't think they were associated with the team.
Yeah, it's the scapegoat. But here's the question: I think not only do we need a neurotrauma unaffiliated consultant, do we just need an unaffiliated team doctor as a whole? Is that where this is going? We just need someone who is unaffiliated.
Well, that's how it always starts out, right? It always starts out with unaffiliated, but then somehow down the line, they end up getting in bed with the team, getting paid under the table. I mean, it's one of those, look at the movie, oh gosh, what is it? Any Given Sunday. If you watch that movie, it's the crooked team doctor who's James Woods. And then you have the good team doctor who wants to do right. But then what happens by the end of the movie? He's on the twisted side. And if you don't think there's some truth to that, you're crazy. And there's a lot of truth to that movie. We did have a question in our comments, and we are a user-friendly show.
Hey, before you read the comment, hold on one second. Just to update, the Packers did just defeat the Patriots by 3 points, 27-20 in overtime. And the Raiders did hold on to win that game against the Broncos to close out the middle game slates.
Shout out to Jeremiah Stoddard for our in-game updates. Great job, sideline reporter.
All right, so we did have a question, and we want to try to be user-friendly. What happened to Lewis Cine? If do yourself a favor, please do not Google that video because you don't want to see that. But it's I believe it's the tibia, it's the side, the shin bone. Yeah, he was coming down in coverage, and he landed. If this is your foot, has landed on the inside of your foot, and it snapped his tibia there, and it was not a pretty sight. So thoughts and prayers go out to Lewis Cine. He was off to a great start. A lot of great stuff coming out of that camp and early this season. The Vikings were extremely excited about Lewis Cine. And I know at Georgia, we all loved the stuff that he did for us. So thoughts and prayers to him. And it was serious enough to where he has to have surgery in London before they'll allow him to travel back. It's that bad.
Yeah.
So
thank goodness he doesn't play for the Dolphins.
Yeah, thank God they fucking tape it. I'm sorry, I just
whoa.
They would tape it together and tell him just to get on the plane and watch a movie.
Pop a few Advil, brother. You good?
Yeah, you'll be good. No, but that's a valid point. Injury. I was thinking about that today too because with that injury, breaking the leg like that, and they're having to do surgery on it. How long is he gonna have to stay in London? Because once you have surgery, you shouldn't get on a plane very shortly after that either because it's not good. All of the swelling and all that kind of stuff that it does, it could be problematic. So at this point, how long is he going to end up sitting in London with the injury? He could be there for a while. Obviously, he's probably not going to play the rest of the year, but he's probably going to be sitting in London for a little while, just having to recover.
You're talking about possibly a good 6 weeks. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, I don't know the reason for the immediate surgery. I don't know if there was blood loss or I'm just praying am praying that it's not a situation like Alex Smith. And we haven't heard a whole lot coming out of there. I'm just praying it's not an Alex Smith situation.
I'm going to say it's probably not an Alex Smith type situation right now, since they, that was one of those things that, like, there was so many reports coming out that they were thinking they were going to have to amputate his leg when he was doing it. So I don't believe, I don't believe that we've had that type of injury, but I do think it's just one that's going to take time to recover from. I don't think it's going to be like Alex Smith.
Yeah, I mean, that's always something they kind of talk about in like UFC fights and stuff, when guys just get freaking wailed on and they're beat up, leaking from the face. They got all these gashes and stuff like that. It refrains them from being able to travel out from that site, because you can't just fly up in the air after getting a beat up face, your eyes swollen shut and stuff like that, because then it's going to reopen those wounds and it could potentially hurt you even further past the injuries that you just took in that fight. So got to be careful with those type of things.
We got some more stuff to talk about. Let's move away kind of from the injury-related topics, because I know that has basically been what our show is about. Dan, you have something to add real quick?
No, I want to say that we talked last week about the Raiders not getting a win, and I told you they were competitive in every single one of those football games, and it was only a matter of time until they got on the winning side of the football. And I also told you the Broncos were not a very good football team. Ironically, they played an even worse football team now that they don't have Trey Lance in the 49ers last week. But the Raiders getting the win 32-23 against the Broncos. Russ Wilson, extremely overpaid, never been on the Russ bus. You guys know that. I said that I was on the record, not an elite quarterback.
Yeah, my favorite comment from last week was Eli Manning saying that the Broncos should have paid their punter all that money. That was my favorite comment from last week.
He said they should have paid their punter $230 million. I was flabbergasted. I was just...
Look, I'm telling you, that man got so much credit for winning on. I mean, Russ is that
think
guy.
about the defense thing. I mean, here's the thing. I was a fan of Russell Wilson at his time with Seattle. I did think he was a good quarterback. I'm with you. I don't think he was one of the elite quarterbacks. I wouldn't put him in that top 5 category, but I did think he was one of the top, quarterbacks in the league overall. And I think that you're right. I think part of his success that he had in Seattle was they were known to have a great defense out there. I mean, absolutely known to have that great defense. That's what he was playing behind, and he doesn't necessarily have that around him this time in Denver. And things just were 4 weeks in, and he doesn't look good.
I think it's fair to point out, let's be fair, Denver's defense is not the problem.
No
means of the imagination. Denver's defense is not the problem. I think the problem is much more on offense. I mean, when Nathaniel Hackett is your head coach, who is the play caller for that team, and your offense is struggling, it's not a very good look for the start of his tenure over there in Denver. I mean, just getting the play calls in late. I mean, when they were on the Manning cast, both Manning brothers, and Peyton, played for them. Just plays are getting called in late. They look unorganized. Receivers aren't lining up, having to burn timeouts, no clock management at all.
Should have been doing less time on Broncos Country Let's Ride videos and more time studying the playbook and getting ready in that area is what it sounds like.
I mean, you had less than 300 yards of total offense in the entire game. That is pretty bad.
And he has weapons. That's what I don't get.
Well, Russell Wilson's success has always been predicated on a good running game. He had Marshawn Lynch. He had a bunch of guys in Seattle that could run the football. He doesn't have that in Denver. If Russell Wilson doesn't have an elite running game, the play action doesn't work and he's not as good. I mean, I love Matt Ryan and I love everything he did in Matt Ryan, but there's a lot of similarities between what Matt Ryan does well and what Russell Wilson does well. They're both more than game managers. I will give him that. I'm not a Russell hater. I'm not that guy. It always frustrated me that people talked about him like at the Tom Brady level or he's not that guy. But if you give him an elite running game and that play action is able to work, he's able to hit some of that play action stuff. And he does have enough mobility to make stuff work. He's a good enough quarterback, but they don't have a running game. So now he's exposed. And he can't just do it by himself.
Well, he led the team in rushing today with 29 yards.
That's the problem.
Well, I'm pretty sure Javonte Williams got hurt and left the game.
Very early on in the game, got hurt.
So that's why on that part. And apparently they didn't have anybody else that could, really take over for him to help.
Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
That's my question. I got Melvin Gordon on my fantasy team. Dude used to be one of the best running backs in the league.
Because
one of the top running backs.
They ran him into the ground at Wisconsin. That's the problem with Wisconsin running backs. They average 40 carries a game. I mean, you can't do that. That's why Georgia has had so much success in the NFL is because they limit their touches at Georgia. They don't run them into the ground. Go look at all of those guys. So,
well, another name
I'm
to list
sorry,
on that is Amir Abdullah. Anybody remember him in college? Freaking stud as a running
hardly
back.
knew ye.
Couldn't he? And now in the NFL, you can't even remember the last time he took an NFL snap. Nobody's talking about Amir Abdullah in the NFL anymore, but he tore it up in college, and that's the same lineage of running backs.
Is that the one from Nebraska?
I think so. Yeah,
okay.
I always kind of get mixed up between which running backs came from Wisconsin, and Nebraska, but it's the same type of deal. They were handing him the
Nebraska
rock
does that too. Yes.
They were handing him the rock every single time they were on the field. I mean, probably like 30 times a game. And so just one of those types of things where you get in the league and you're just gassed, man. You don't have anything left.
Well,
Hey,
I mean,
go ahead.
Another one real quick. Sorry, Dan. Is Jonathan Taylor had a tremendous season last year. Tremendous season. Now he's off to a slow start. And like
tell
Dan
me
was
about
saying,
it. Use my number one pick.
rest in peace, Jonathan. And now he's hurt.
But that's definitely another guy that he ran the ball so much in college.
Wisconsin.
That it's exactly Wisconsin. The same, like they run these guys into the ground on there.
Well, and that's why teams are so reluctant to use high round draft picks on running backs anymore. That's why you don't have first round draft picks going on anymore. They're picking them up in the fourth round now because most times running backs are going to last you maybe 6 seasons, 8 if they're really good
at best.
So, like,
absolutely,
they're just not
best.
worth the draft capital anymore, and that's why they're not being highly rewarded or highly seen in the draftscape for that very reason, because they are not lasting.
You're going to see teams kind of take that process now. Like, think about the Raiders, because we were just talking about this game. They did not go out to get Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option. They're going to let him go after this season, and they drafted Zamir White last year. So they're already preparing the replacement of that because – and Josh Jacobs, he's one of the better running backs in the league in general. Like, and he would be worth re-signing, but they're not – I think the thing is they're going, hey, I don't want to pay this guy that much money because what if 2 years from now I'm still paying him, $30 million and he's not able to play, he's our number 2 running back all of a sudden because he's injured and he's having problems. So, holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my God.
there's a stat and an analytic, and you can go and find it if you want to, and they use it for NFL running backs. So since it's back before Michael Turner was the running back with the Falcons, but there's a stat where it's like 332 or 323 or something. It's right there in the low 300 numbers, right? If an NFL back eclipses that number in a season of carries, his production every single series season after that either is 100% gone or significantly reduced. So there's this magic number, and the only running back since I want to say this thing came out in like 2001 or 2002, somewhere in there. But it's every back that's gone over that threshold, their career has completely fallen off. The only one that's an exception to it is Derrick Henry, and I can't explain that because but that guy's a monster and he continues to produce. There was a lot of good games going on, guys. I don't know which one you guys want to hit on next, but I do have a question. Jared Goff, all of a sudden elite quarterback. Where the heck did that come from?
That's just Jared Goff turning it on for one game. That's
TJ
it.
Hawkinson had the game of his life today.
Yep.
That's
Let's
what
go
happened for Jared Goff.
Go look at his stats this season. It's like he's throwing 3-4 touchdowns every game. So Detroit was the only team. Here's the stat for you. Anybody listening, this is a real stat. Detroit was the only team to score in every single quarter of the season so far this year. Holy cow. I don't know about today. I don't know. Hold on, let me look at it. Yep, they scored in every quarter. So Detroit, the only team in the NFL to
they
score
scored
in every
45 points today and still lost, though.
And what's their record?
They've got to have
They're
1-3. They're 1-3, but the reason for that is because they don't have a defense to support. The Seahawks scored 48 points on them today. The Seahawks.
And they have no quarterback.
It really hurts too. Like, they not this draft, but the draft previous, they used a first-round pick, I believe, on Jeff Okudah, the cornerback out of Ohio State. He has not been playing too hot for the Detroit Lions. Like, when you're missing on those early round draft picks, when you're trying to rebuild your defense, that really, really hurts. Atlanta was kind of victim to that as well. They took Tack McKinley in the first round one year. He didn't pan out. Vic Beasley gave you one good season, the Super Bowl run that you had where you had like 15 sacks in a season. He ended up not panning out either. And it really wasn't until as of late where their defensive picks in the draft started hitting. So when you're missing on those picks consecutively, it really hinders you from developing up your defense, and now it's hindering you big time in wins because your offense ain't the problem, surprisingly. So that's just unfortunately, that's what they're falling victim to right now.
Another game we got to talk about, and it's because we had a QB change, is the Pittsburgh Steelers against the New York Jets. Kenny Pickett got his NFL debut as a starting quarterback in the regular season. Had 2 rushing touchdowns, if I remember correctly. Actually threw the ball to George Pickens, so shout out to him. He's already winning over some Georgia fans. But he also had 3 completions to the Jets defense. Thoughts? Concerns?
So the completions to the Jets defense, I think one of them is not his fault. I'm pretty sure it was through a receiver's hands on there. So you got to give him a little bit of time. You got to think he got put in mid-game, and it's just one of those things where they're passing the torch on, clearly letting him go. You're right. He did start his first drive. He ended up with a QB sneak, I believe, for a touchdown. And then a little bit later, he ran it in from like the 5-yard line himself as well and took a pretty decent hit a couple times on there. I think he's going to have a good chance. I think he's got some grit with him, and he plays, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out with him there in that offense once he has a little bit of time as a starter. Yeah, I wouldn't judge his performance on the picks today when he got put in mid-game, and it just their team, the Steelers, are just kind of a dumpster fire in general. I think they don't look good.
I think the Steelers going to have a good team to start transitioning Kenny Pickett into the starting quarterback role, because you have Najee Harris, really good running back. So you have a running back that you can kind of rely on, and you're not exactly having to rely on Pickett to toss the ball around the yard 40 times a game to win you the game. And then also you have George Pickens, a younger guy, someone that Pickett's probably gotten to work a lot with during the offseason and rookie camp and stuff like that. So you can allow them to build that connection. And if Kenny Pickett, who it seemed like with the draft pick that you selected him with, is who the future of the franchise is going to be at that spot. If that is who you want being your starting quarterback, then I'd say to heck with it. Just go ahead and start playing with it. Let him and George kind of start building some on-field chemistry. Chase Claypool as well. You got another weapon there. So he has some solid foundation around him on that offense. And the defense isn't too shabby up there in Pittsburgh as well. So
Deontay
I think
Johnson too.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson as well. So he has good weapons.
He's got plenty of weapons
so
around him.
I think Pittsburgh has a solid foundation to just go ahead and introduce the rookie quarterback into his role and just let him get used to it. Baptized by fire a little bit, but at the same time, he's just going to get adjusted, and he'll probably get better as the year goes on. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I was going to go back and comment. We were asked by Rudes, and Rudes is our guy. So if Rude asks, we're gonna give him the answer. So, what was it? 926 carries for Jonathan Taylor at Wisconsin. Well, Chubb probably had more of a workload than any other Georgia running back. I think it's fair to say he had the heaviest workload out of any Georgia back, and he only had 758 carries. So you're talking about 200 extra carries divided by 3 years, because Taylor only played for 3 years. I mean, that's over 300 carries a year.
That's like a whole season's worth more of carries for Taylor if you're comparing him and Chubb in that aspect. 200 more carries, that's like a whole nother season almost.
And Chubb did it in 4 years or 5 years, and Taylor did it in 3. That's insane, guys.
Todd Gurley is another guy that he had his knee issues in the NFL, and that he eventually got through his first big contract, got into the next one, and just really couldn't play too much. He had 510 carries in his career at college, and he played the 3 seasons and a shortened one with the injury and stuff his last year too.
Real quick, I just look up the stats on Jonathan Taylor. Talk about him having 926 carries in college. He is through I think it's 3 seasons now in the NFL. I think it's about 3 seasons. He only has 625 career rushes in the NFL. So he's already still, after 3 or 4 years.
You say only, that's 3 years.
That's a lot.
That's 3 years, but compared to his college career, that's nothing. That's a running back.
Yeah, but NFL carries are different, dude. Listen, you play some.
It's a car crash every play.
Every time. Dude, you said 600 and how many carries?
625 through 3 years. They ran him into the ground too.
My man is done.
Get some justice from a man, Jonathan Taylor. I need him for the rest of the fantasy season. The Colts are doing my man dirty. Come on now. This is ridiculous. Get some justice for my man.
Was there what's another game you guys want? I wanted to kind of touch on the Titans and Colts, because I was a little bit bullish on the Colts coming into the season. If you guys remember in our preseason prognostication stuff, I thought that the Colts were a team that was going to be really, really good. And I look really, really stupid right now because Matt Ryan is not playing well. And the Titans are just one of those teams that they're always there at the end of the season. I don't know how much you guys have had a chance to watch them. Titans are playing well and the Colts are not. What are your guys' thoughts on that game in particular?
I just think Matt Ryan's kind of lacking some weapons out there in Indianapolis, especially when you take Jonathan Taylor out of the picture with some injuries. I mean, you got Michael Pittman. That's the only wide receiver I can name out there. You got Naeem Hines as well as at the running back spot, but I think it just all has to do with the lack of weapons up there for him. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's not going very well for them up there. I think he just. I've been the biggest Matt Ryan supporter in Atlanta and while he was here, and I think he did get a lot of crap for the stuff that was going on here that wasn't his fault. I think the defense with Atlanta definitely didn't help him out when they're giving up 30-plus points a game, and so they kind of put him in a bad spot. But I don't know if it's just like a new system. We've talked about this before. I think off the air, you get this new offense and it's like a new language and they're trying to learn everything. They're trying to figure everything out and kind of mesh together. So it's like a little bit maybe of a learning process there that they're trying to get more comfortable together. And maybe that's part of it, but he definitely is not as crisp as I remember him being in Atlanta right now.
Yeah. And to hit on that Matt Ryan point, Stoddard, Matt Ryan never had a top 15 defense in his entire career with the Atlanta Falcons. Just to point that out. And speaking of defenses, I want to hit on this Bills-Ravens game. Stoddard, I know you were getting fired up about it because the Ravens decided to go for it on 4th down in a situation where they could have just kicked 3 points, go up by 3. They ended up losing by 3. And, these whole 4th down situations in crunch down, it all boils down to this because if you hit it, you go like, okay, he's a genius. Todd Monken dropped his nuts in the situation last night with Georgia on 4th and goal, didn't kick the field goal. Instead, he goes for it, does a jet sweep to the right, and they get the touchdown. Kenny McIntosh runs it in. But at that point, if you do not get in the end zone, if Kenny McIntosh does not get in the end zone, you lose that football game. The Ravens today fell victim to that by electing to go for it on 4th down, and that's a shame because what would have ended up being a tie game potentially going into overtime, you ended up losing by 3, and it bites you in the butt.
Well, I just don't understand, at least with Georgia was trailing, right? Like they were losing that game. And so they actually needed more points in order to like put themselves in a better spot in that game. Whereas the Ravens were literally tied 20-20 with the Bills and there was 4 minutes left in the game. Take the field goal, take the points. And then you get down there and you trust your defense to hold the rest of the way for you. At worst case scenario, you're thinking, maybe they can get that field goal because maybe that's what they're thinking, right? But going for a touchdown is we want to make it extremely difficult. They can't get that in that short period of time, or if we can hold up like that, maybe they can only get a field goal or opportunity, or they have to go for it on 4th down later. Well, what you ended up doing was setting it up where they can get down the field and kick a field goal to win the game instead of being able to kick a field goal to tie the game. So I don't understand the logic when you're tied to really just risk the game in that type of situation by going for it on 4th down when 1 point gives you the lead, and instead you don't take it, they go down the field, and they beat you because of it. To me, it was just stupid. It made zero sense to me.
Well, the other thing that we have to mention, and I know Harrison's going to piss him off because he's an anti-Eagles guy, but Eagles 4-0. I mean, our Georgia boy is getting it done there. Jalen Hurts is looking good. Sanders had a fantastic game today rushing the football. They fall behind to the Jaguars, who are a little bit surprising good, right? Doug Peterson, actually a real coach, not Urban Meyer. Getting the Jaguars playing really well. They're up 14-0. Eagles come back, score 20 in the second quarter, and then in the fourth quarter they trade. It's 9-7 in the fourth quarter, but Eagles come out on top, still undefeated. Jalen Hurts doing what they say couldn't be done, and I guess that leads us to the Cowboys. Go ahead, Harrison.
I know. Even with our backup quarterback, the Cowboys get it done, and y'all don't like to hear it, but hey. I'm fine with it. Cowboys got two quarterbacks that can win. Whoa.
Give you some credit today. Give you some credit today.
Cooper Rush, 4-0. Meanwhile, everybody else is sweating it out because, Cowboys pass rush kind of looks scary. Uh-oh. Destroying the next offensive line nearest to you. Cooper Rush is getting it done. I know everyone's talking about Dak Prescott. Maybe not being the guy down there. Well, if you go back and watch the games, you will see the biggest difference. They are doing what Cooper Rush is comfortable in. Get him in play action, leaning on the run game heavy, and really not asking him to do all that much. What was Dak Prescott good at? When was he really good? Well, he wasn't asked to do that much, and the run game was strong.
What I'm hearing, Harrison, is it's almost like what Georgia did with Stetson Bennett when he had to come in last year with JT Daniels. They were just doing with what Stetson Bennett was comfortable with, and that wins you ball games, and it puts you in a successful spot in the offense, and you actually play good as a quarterback if your offensive coordinator puts you in that position. So
Yes.
interesting.
Kellen Moore has figured it out so far. Big test will be what is he going to do when he gets his starting quarterback back. Cooper Rush is not going to be the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. It took Dak Prescott 10 games to win the job from Tony Romo.
Hey, doesn't it seem that like across the board that when you give it a talented offensive coordinator, the less talented quarterback, he's able to do more? It's really weird, and I don't have the stats to back it up. This is just something that popped in my head a minute ago, but across the board, when the less talented guy comes in, it's almost like they take their job more seriously and they start like really dialing it in. Like, look at what they did with Stetson. Like, that's about as clean a play calling last year as I've ever seen. And it's almost like they get lazy when they have an extremely talented quarterback. They're like, well, maybe it's a good play, maybe it's not, but he's so darn good, he's going to make it work. So, I don't know. Maybe Kellen Moore is actually spending a little bit more time on his craft here and really dialing up an excellent game plan and letting Cooper Rush execute it. It's just a thought, something I thought about. Maybe
hell of a thought there, Dan. Damn, hell of a thought.
Oh, you are a butt kisser.
All right, that's enough praise of the Cowboys.
It's enough. That's enough. Too much.
We got 5 minutes, guys. We got
some predictions to do, right, boys?
Yes.
That's what we should be doing. We have 2 games to predict.
And Harrison, I rode with you on the Cowboys wave last week, and it paid off. So I just want that credit.
I don't remember who won between the father and the doctor last week. Was it the father? Did the father come out reign supreme?
We put or like on this show.
Stoddard won Broncos 49ers.
Yeah, we pushed last week because I didn't take I didn't take the Cowboys last week.
We pushed.
And see, that's your fault, though, Harrison. This is your fault because I was on the fence and I was about to pick them, and then you started talking about them being America's team and kind of.
Don't blame it on Harrison. That's bullcrap. That is bullcrap. Don't you dare redeem
yourself today.
Do not place your own struggles on little brother over here. That is unfair to him. You need to take ownership of your actions and deal with it and move forward like a grown up. All right, time to man up. Let's move forward.
Yes, Mom. Okay,
Stoddard, you're on the chopping block, man. Bucks versus Chiefs tonight, 8:20. Yeah. Bucks are 1.5-point favorites. Who you got?
See, I don't think
it's 2-point.
2-point favorite. Yeah, it's a 2-point favorite. No, I don't think that we're all going to have very big different opinions on the pick'ems for the 2 games that are going on tonight and tomorrow. And I'm going with the Chiefs on the road. I understand that they lost last week and it was a tough game, but that's part of why I think they're going to come back and bounce back. Tampa Bay has a pretty good defense, still only giving up 9 points a game versus I think Kansas City has like 21 points a game or something like that. So their defense isn't quite as good, but they have a lot stronger of an offense to kind of back that up. And I think that that's going to be too much for Tampa Bay to be able to hold them off today.
I think the biggest thing for me, it's hard to bet against a winner like Tom Brady, the GOAT of the NFL. But he has a lot of his weapons banged up right now. Chris Godwin's still kind of iffy right now. I think he is going to go tomorrow, but still just a lot of guys banged up in that wide receiver room. So I think it's going to hinder them a little bit. And Patrick Mahomes, man, gosh, I'll bet on him most days of the week with his arm talent and just what he's able to do inside the pocket. So I'll ride with the Chiefs on this one.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against Mahomes. Mahomes is almost hitting it. I think it's like 72% completion at this point. I mean, that's extremely high. I mean, what do they always say? You want your quarterback to be around 68, 67, somewhere there. You're over 70% and putting up the numbers he does. And, I mean, there's a difference between a check down Charlie hitting 70%, like our boy, what was his name? The quarterback of Georgia who completed like every pass against South Carolina.
Grayson Lambert.
Yep. Grayson Lambert.
24 for 25 against South Carolina.
Yeah. So Mahomes ain't doing that, folks. He's taking shots down the field. Brady has not had his weapons. He's going to have Mike Evans back. I would be willing to bet you Mike Evans has a really good game tonight, but it's just really hard to bet against the Chiefs. It's only a 2-point line. I think I would take the Chiefs and feel pretty good about it.
I'm taking the Bucks here. They made the Cowboys look really bad, so can't bet against Tom Brady. He is the Cowboys' daddy at this point. Cowboys have never beaten Tom Brady.
He's everybody's daddy except Eli Manning's.
Yes, correct. There we go. Thank you. I'm going with the Bucks here. I think they're going to have a pretty good game. Their defense has been pretty scary. Next up, we have the Rams at the 49ers. Last I checked the line,
it's 49ers 1.5.
There we go.
Yeah, -1.5, which somebody tell me how the 49ers are
I'm
a
still
favorite.
confused.
Yeah, how are they?
No idea.
How are they favored in this game? I don't know. But anyways, with that being said, I think the Rams are going to be able to go on the road and take that game. They just are. I don't think the 49ers look good at all with Jimmy G. He looked so bad last week on, what was it, Sunday Night Football, playing against the Broncos himself, and he didn't look good. He's not going to look good again this week. There's a reason that he was your backup quarterback before Trey Lance, got taken out for the 49ers, and I just don't believe in him.
If you're expecting me to pick a team whose quarterback ran through the back of the end zone last week, then you are sorely mistaken. I'm not riding with Jimmy G and the 49ers on this one. I don't know how, like Stoddard said, the 49ers are favored in this game. Matthew Stafford or Cooper Kupp are a dynamic duo. Cooper Kupp is just – he's hell on the field, boys. He gives everybody fits, and I think he's going to give the 49ers fits tomorrow night as well. I got the Rams in this one, and I don't know that it's going to be really close.
The one thing that I've always learned is in Vegas, the buildings get bigger. They don't get smaller. So Vegas is not stupid, but this seems like a stupid line. And a lot of times when they say it seems like a stupid line, it means they know something that you don't. I'm still going to pick the Rams. I have no idea why San Francisco's the 49ers are a favorite. But when the 49ers win and cover that line, don't look at me because I have no idea why or how or whatever. But like a wise man once said, those buildings get bigger, not smaller. I don't know what to tell you, folks.
I'm not going to break the line here. I'm going with the Rams here. Got to trust in Stafford. Their offense didn't look very great against the Bills. I haven't watched them since, so I'm going to be interested to see how they do here. And I'm tired of hearing this about the tie between the two Jays here. So we're going to break the tie this week. We are going with a Thursday night pick out of the blue. I decided to do it because the line's close. So why not? Dan, that means an extra pick for you as well, sir. Jeremiah, first up. Colts versus Broncos. Colts are minus 2.5 point favorites.
Who's at home?
Do not have that information, sir. Let me look it up.
So
Broncos are home.
Broncos are at home. The Colts and Broncos. I'm going to go with the Colts. I'm going to take the Colts on it because I think, even though they've had their problems and stuff, the Denver just doesn't look like they got a little bit more of an offense going today. But like we talked about earlier, I'm not a believer in Russell Wilson with the Broncos right now. I need to see a little bit more, and I think the Colts will be able to hold off and win that game.
Well, since Stoddard and I have picked the same for the other two games, I can't ride with the Colts. Broncos country, let's ride, baby. Russell Wilson, give me it, baby. Thursday night, he's coming into this game. He's going to ball out. They're going to get back on track for this game. I'm riding with Russell Wilson and the Broncos. They are going to defeat Matt Ryan and the Colts. I'm taking that one. That's going to be the tiebreaker, and I'm going to defeat you this week, Stoddard.
Real quick, Dan. Real quick. I just want to point this out. The line used to be fade the father, but essentially Jay Will just copped out on himself. He's been trusting the father. If he's been picking the same as him, Stoddard sets the line.
Well, you just let him go
Jay Will's
first,
been following
man.
it. Dan, who do you got? Who are you trusting here?
I'm not taking the Broncos and laying points. There's no way. So I got the Colts. Both teams have been bad. So I really have no idea who's going to win this game. I guess I'll take the Colts and give me the 3 points. Hopefully they can at least backdoor cover.
It's kind of tough to see who I want to ride with, the father or the doctor. The doctor hasn't been too hot. Even in in the last 2 weeks on the Classic City Sports podcast, not been doing too hot. Jay Styles
I'm still in the lead, buddy. I'm still in the lead.
Oh, you are taking okay.
Yeah, I had a rough. I ain't gonna lie, I had a rough week this week.
Ooh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm gonna ride with the father here. I'm gonna take the Colts minus 2.5.
Come at me, guys. Bring it on. Let's go.
I'm riding with them. Let's see who wins this rivalry this week, guys.
Know, Thursday night, I'm coming after all of y'all if the Broncos win this game. It is going to be hell in the group chat. I'll just go ahead and warn you. You have been warned.
We have been warned, guys. We will see what happens at the end of the week. That's going to wrap it up today for the 4 Wide Podcast. Go follow everybody. That's Jeremiah Sauter to my right. Down below me is Dan Kiley. And to the right of Dan Kiley is Jonathan Williams. Go follow them on Twitter at the Sodfather, at Dan Kiley3, and at Dr._J Will. I'm at Harrison Reno. Guys, we'll see you back next week. Same time, same place. Have a good week.